Okay. Hey everybody, and if you're in the Photoshop class, this looks very familiar, doesn't it? Because recording these back to back, but this one's different. All right. This is we're moving into week 7 and 8. Let me go ahead and make this full screen because just like with the Photoshop class, I had a big assignment last week. Had a lot of people that had some problems with the getting those Illustrator files in and the Photoshop file. And working within those symbol modes, okay, which is good practice because you had to bring those things into the library, you had to import them in, and then you only used individual components to create the what ended up to be a very creative, hopefully, I haven't seen everybody's yet, endeavor for the pirates and the zombies because it's October, right? And in the fall, that's when the zombies and the pirates come out. So. Anyway, I hope everybody's enjoying a little bit cooler weather, and we're going ahead and we're looking back, actually, going ahead and looking back at what you've learned so far. I mean, we've done a lot with Flash, believe it or not. You've created some new Flash files. You've played around with the stage settings. You've added layers to the timeline. You've managed keyframes. Keyframes are very important in the timeline. You've worked with imported images, right, in the library panel. Moved and repositioned those images on the stage using words like the stage and the timeline, right? Used tools in the tool panel. You previewed your files, you saved your files as .fla files, and then they become .swf files when you either export or when you preview and when you go to test the movie, all right? And those become .swf files, or they also become .html files, not that you create an HTML file, that is associated with an SWF file that can be embedded within the HTML if you preview it in the browser. You've drawn things within Flash, right? Yeah, you've drawn rectangles and ovals and coffee cups and things like that. You've modified the shapes and the colors and the size of those objects you drew, and you've used the fill and the stroke settings. You know, the fill is what's on the inside and the stroke is on the outside, and created and edited curves, like maybe with the coffee cup handle, and applied those gradients and transparencies, and you've added hyperlinks, like to the Garden Court Cafe, and distributed objects on the stage. You've imported, this was in the Pirates and the Zombies, you've imported Illustrator and Photoshop artwork, created new symbols from those individual components, edited the symbols, managed keyframes in the timeline again, used rules and guides to position those objects on the stage, adjusted transparency and color, applied blending effects, and applied some special effects. So you've done a lot. Now this week we're finally getting into animating. Okay, we're going to be animating the position, scale, and rotation of objects, and we're going to be adjusting the pacing and timing of our animation. Okay, because animations have a beginning and an end across the timeline, right? We're going to be animating transparency and special effects, and changing the path of an object's motion across the stage. We'll be creating tweens, and I mentioned about and this is in your textbook, and I actually mentioned this in the Photoshop class. Tweens are where you had actually a good example is where you had certain animators would work on one cell, you have another animator work on another cell, all right, and these cells were celluloid, they were clear, okay, and they could lay on top of each other. And then you would have the junior animators come and do everything that was in between where that one point was in time and that other point in time, and that's what creates that illusion of motion, okay? Because your eye, like when we make a flip book and you flip through and they get that illusion of motion. Fortunately, I don't have any animation there. Yeah, I sometimes do. You will be creating animations inside of those symbols too. Each symbol can have an animation inside itself, and we'll be changing the easing of an object's motion as well. So basically we're going to be working through chapter 4 on animating symbols. You'll be creating this double identity movie. It is a movie. It is an ad for this movie called Double Identity, starring Mark Sousa and Wendy Carter. So you're going to be creating this little advertisement for this movie. Some of the animations are already part of, like the rumble of the car, okay? But you're going to be adding some effects to some of the tweens that are happening as things come in and they rotate and come into a different location. and blending effects and transparency effects. And I want you to really pay close attention to pages 126 through 136 and on the path of motion. That's using the little alien here. Okay, very important because that's what we're going to be using to create our PONG movie. Okay, those of you, and I'll put a little video in here about the history of PONG. PONG was the very first video game. Okay, very simple game. You know, you had two paddles. You had scores, and you had a ball, and the ball was actually a square. Okay, it's not really wasn't in a round shape. I think a pixel is little squares, right? And so very simple, but it was, you could interact. So it was one of the first digital games. So you had people that could control the paddles, and the ball could bounce off the sides, and the ball would hit those paddles. You're going to create this as a movie. It's not going to be a game itself. So you're just going to be animating the paddles and animating the ball and animating the scores, and you're going to add some sounds too. So your PONG movie is actually going to be 30 seconds long. Okay, and you're going to change the frames per second to 25. By default, Flash's frames per second is 24. Makes it easier to think in, to me, 25, 50, 75, 100, and 125 instead of 24, 48, 72, 96. That's it's easier for me to think in terms of it's quarters, quarter, 50 cents, you know, 75, $1. So easier to think in terms of 25 in quarters. So you're going to, and for 30 seconds, that gives you should have 750 frames in your finished product. All right. You are going to have 6 layers. You're going to have the ball, and you're going to have a layer for a left paddle, a layer for a right paddle. You're going to have a layer for the net, okay, that's going down the middle, and you're going to have layers for your left score and your right score. You're going to have sound files that are going to be used, and this is moving a little ahead. It's really easy to add sound, and I'm giving you the sound files in the Dropbox. Have sound files that will be used when the ball hits a paddle, when the ball hits the side, and when the ball goes out of the court, okay, and a score is made. 3 different sound files, and you'll apply those at those specific events. That means you need to add a keyframe. And remember, keyframes are when things change, okay, on the stage. You're going to have points change when the score is made, and you are going to test the movie and submit the completed FLA and SWF files with the naming structure here: last name underscore Pong.FLA and last name underscore Pong.SWF. All right, and I'm going to show you a little bit more, so hang around. Okay, don't leave just yet. But if you think you've got it from here, you can leave. But I'm going to show you. We'll get into Flash in just a second. Next week, the midterm exams. It'll be short. It's open book and it's online, but it is worth 15% of your final grade. So it's hard to believe it's midterm. I'm going to give you also time. You'll have time through next week. It won't be due until the following to work on your PONG assignment and your level up activities if you haven't done those yet. Okay, so please do practice, practice, practice. Your level up activity is going to be based. The second activity will be based around the double identity movie ad, but it will be to recreate this. Oops, sorry about that. This Dick Tracy movie ad, and I'll give you the pictures of Warren Beatty and Madonna, and you use a Dick Tracy ad. Okay, so that is it. Let's. I said I'm going to get into Flash to show you a little bit. All right. So here is I've created. And this is just a PONG test where I have my stage. It's a black stage, and it is actually, and it's easier to think of the stage, and I should put these dimensions in as well. I would do the stage as 600 by 400, okay, because you'll want your net, when I look at my net, it is at the 300x position on, which is halfway between, it's right in the middle of the stage, all right? So use your XY positions to, and my net is made up of little gray rectangles, right? And what I did to create the net, you know, and I used my rectangle tool, and I'll get rid of these in a minute, but I created one little rectangle, right? And maybe that's not exactly the size as this. I'm going to try to eyeball it. But I had the color of that was gray actually. So I actually want to change the color of my little gray rectangle. Ooh, I didn't highlight it. And I'll make that, yeah. So I had it just because that's in the PONG animation. It was about that color there. So, and then I just copied. I used keyboard shortcuts Control C and then Control V, and I made copies of the individual ones, right? And then I placed them as like where they'd be as a net. Okay, get rid of these now. But I did those all on the net layer. All right. Notice I do have my 6 layers for ball, left paddle, right paddle, net, left score, and right score. All right. My ball is a little rectangle. All right. You'll see I already have some motion tweens here. The ball and the left paddle and right paddle I've already turned into motion tweens because I've tweened them. Okay. They have been tweened. And so I can now continue to create motion tweens as I progress. But you'll see my ball starts off here, right in the right here in the middle. And if I scrub through the playhead, it starts off. It hits the paddle on the left first, goes across, and that is at the 25 frame mark. And notice I've changed this down here to where it's at 25 frames per second is my frame rate. Okay, and my entire animation again for 30 seconds, 750 frames. Okay. I had to extend those out. So from here, all right, I've got these I've got things happening. I have these keyframes because I have things on the stage, right? I've got the ball, I've got the paddles, I've got the net, and I've got the scores on the stage. All right, now what happens in these other keyframes is here, this ball has changed its position, all right? And Flash knew to create this motion tween in between its beginning position and its ending position. And at this position, I have a sound that plays, so you can hear it. And that was that little blip there. All right. So if I continue to go, I have something happening at every 25th frame. So 25, 50, 75. So things are happening almost in terms of quarter-second timings. Okay. So second timings. Excuse me. Back up. Yeah. So because there are 25 frames per second, so at every 25 frames, that's 1 second. So at the 50th frame, that's 2 seconds has happened. At the 75th frame, something else happens where I have the ball is in motion, or its position has changed from where it was at the 50th frame, and the paddle is in the right paddle. I went ahead and set it as a keyframe because it's going to start moving in a second, and the sound is playing. And I've got the sounds in my library. You'll see I've got Pong blip paddles, Pong blip miss, and Pong blip walls. So I've got actually that sound that's playing there is the Pong blip paddle. And so if I hit the play button again, you can hear it. Okay. All I had to do was drag it out to the stage, and I'll show you guys how to do that in a minute. All right, so now something's happening, okay? The ball is going to go up, hit the wall, okay? And I've got a motion tween that's happening for the left paddle and the ball itself as it's moving through, okay? And the ball is hitting the left paddle, then the ball needs to go somewhere. That's all I've done so far, okay? Ball hits the left paddle, ball. Notice that when it hits the wall, it's a different and our audio file that plays. It was a deeper audio file. Hear that? And you can actually the wall. You can actually preview these sounds in Flash. There's a little play button when you click on the library of the sound file, and the paddle one sounds like, and the miss sounds like. Okay, so let's make it miss. Let's see if I can do that. All right. So I've stopped here. All right. So now I want the ball, and so I'm again going to this. This is stopped at 150. Comes next is 175. So the ball is going to. We need a keyframe added on the ball layer, and I'm going to insert a keyframe. And because it's already been tweened, I can create a position keyframe. All right. Now I want that ball to travel to this position keyframe. And in order to do that, I notice I clicked off for the ball, so where I can now, sometimes it's best to lock those other layers or have them where you can't see them, where you're not grabbing the wrong one. So I need to be grabbing the ball layer here, and I'm going to move it. Oops, wrong one. To about this point, okay? And that's at the 175th mark, 175 frame mark. It's not 175th, the 175th frame, right? So see from there, right? Now something else needs to be happening, and that my right paddle needs to be coming down, okay? So I'm going to start, and I need to have a keyframe for the right paddle here. And I'm going to right click and do insert position keyframe, right? But I want my right paddle to start coming down at that, it's already seeing, your player over here seeing, oh, I need to start moving. So at the 175th, let's say he started to come down, and let's move it down to about, oh, I've got it locked. Always remember to unlock them too when you need to move them. And bring it down about right here, okay? So look what's happening. The ball's moving over, paddle's coming down, okay? And then at the 200th frame, I can add another keyframe for the ball. Let's have it bounce off the paddle one more time. I said I was going to have it miss, but I'm going to have it bounce off the paddle once more. So I'm going to insert a position keyframe here. I'm going to continue to move the ball straight across right here. And I also need to continue at this point to, let's add a position keyframe for the right paddle. Let's continue to move that right paddle down, right? So the right paddle is going to end up there, and that's where the ball is going to hit the right paddle. Boom. Okay. And now, since I want the ball to hit the right paddle, I am going to click on the net layer, because that's where I'm adding my sounds. You can add them to any layer actually, but I'm adding these, and I want to have something happen. So I'm inserting a keyframe. Now this hasn't been tweened, so this is just a regular old keyframe. It's not a position keyframe. And I am going to just drag the Pong Blip paddle wave file to the stage. And notice down here, now I have a little audio icon in my timeline. So if I hit the play button, you'll see, let's see what happens from this point on, to where it hit there, and we should see our ball go over, and you'll hear it hit the paddle. Okay, and it just stopped. All right, now let's say that we'll want the ball to actually start traveling back. So we had stopped at the 200th. So I'm going over to the 225th frame, adding a keyframe for the ball, the 225th frame for position. The ball is going to, let's say it's going to start traveling from here. It's going to go up. Okay. So it hit. Oops, I made a mistake. No, that's right. That's what I wanted. Yep. So the 225th, it hit at 200, starts moving up. Okay. And I also want the left paddle, which I probably need to add a keyframe for its position here, to where it would be starting from that area. Okay, so we want that left paddle is just staying in position. It's not really moving. If I added the tween without putting that position to where it was there, it would start moving upward from this point in time at the 175th frame, but I want it to start moving upward from the 200th frame. Okay, so now I want the left paddle at the 225th frame to start going upward. So I'm inserting a position frame, and let's move that left paddle upward. Oh, it's locked, sorry, gotta unlock it as well. You can always know when you can move it because you get the crosshairs. Okay, so right, so it's at that point, so he sees the ball coming, right, Now at the 250th frame, I'm going to have the ball go out. Okay, so I'm going to put a keyframe, put 250th mark of position for the ball. I'm going to keep that ball moving. Actually, it's going to go off the stage. Boom. Okay, so it's actually going to go pretty fast. Okay, because you'll see how it really picks up speed because it's going further. Okay, so between here, I want we'll say that this guy here, that the paddle went too far up and the ball, he overjudged where the ball was going to end. So my left paddle at the 250th frame, I need to enter a keyframe for position, and I'm going to drag it up, actually off the stage a little bit, to where now, let me go back to my, where this is happening. He keeps going. Oh, he would have hit it. Yeah, so that's not a good spot for him. Say that, ooh, should I have him hit? Nah. Let me adjust this motion here. We'll just have him end up short. He just didn't make it up as far as he should have. Yeah, maybe a little bit higher at the end. Maybe about right there. No, he kept going up. I actually added that to the 255th. Let me move that one off. Change that. It's this one I want to change. Have him up a little bit more. So now he just missed him. Okay. So what happens when the ball misses is at this frame we get a PONG blip miss sound that we're going to add to the net layer. So we're adding a keyframe to the net layer. PONG blip miss, boom, is added. Okay, and it's kind of a long sound. Okay, so watch what happens when we play the entire movie. Boop. Whoa, I just barely got that one in. Okay, and we would continue on. Now what would happen at this point? All right, we know something needs to happen for the left or the right score. It's the right one gets a point, right? So at this point, which we could actually have happen at about the 275th, a second later. So after you hear the beep, let's go ahead and insert a keyframe here. All right, and it's at 0 here, but at this point this text is going to change, and I need to use the text tool to 1. So now it's 1. So it was 0 and now it's 1. At that point, that's where it made the change on the so let me just, I'm going to use this, I'm going to test the movie. All right, and we'll just test it in Flash Professional. Boop. And then the point is scored. All right, you're going to continue this on. Now there's one thing I'm not really happy with. It was where this paddle is coming down at that point here. See, that point, this guy here needs to be lower down. Okay, so I'm going to change my left paddle at this point. It needs to be right there. Okay, so now let's see, that looks better. Boom. He still misses. Going back up. Let's see how that plays now. much better. He's still going to miss. All right, get the point. All right, and you get the point, right? So you're going to continue on until one player will win, or it could end up being a tie, okay? At the very end, you could put player 1 wins or something across the, if you wanted to add one more layer or make it a part of the net layer as some text there as well. You can change your stage or the actual court that you're playing on can be different. You can use different colors, different fonts, obviously, different paddle sizes. You can use a round ball. You may want to use make it look more like a tennis game, but it's still going to have the same types of Pong elements that the traditional old style Pong. This is the old style Pong, but you may get as creative as you want. Have a blue background, green ball, whatever. So that's basically it, okay, for your work this week. I look forward to seeing you'll save the Pong, remember, as FLA and a .swf, upload those into D2L, into the Dropbox, and enjoy playing. I'm also going to, there's a couple little videos I'm going to put out there. One is a video that is of the original Pong creators, and this was back in the 60s, and the others just some fun stuff for you to see based around Pong, because some of you may not be familiar with Pong, and it's the first video game I ever played, and so it holds a near and dear place in my heart. Maybe if we have time in this semester, might teach you how to actually make it a game, and that would be fun. But it's just we're really focused on just animation and making a movie. But you can do some fun stuff movie-wise, and I'll put a little link to a fun Pong movie out there as well. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Enjoy the fall weather. Don't forget about your online open book midterm exam next week, and happy Ponging and animating. Bye.